Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I know it's another day that I'm really slow at getting the video out. Yesterday, it actually wasn't my fault. The internet was horribly slow at uploading. It took several hours to get yesterday's video, and that's why it didn't come out till late last night. I think, I can't confirm this, but from the research that I was doing, I think it had to do with the CME. There was a CME that was coming in, and while it didn't do anything really bad, it looked like it was creating enough of a geomagnetic storm that it was affecting, you know, satellite communications from here to the where they're at, and caused the internet to kind of slow down. There seemed to be a lot of people complaining about that yesterday. So today though, I was getting ready to make a video and kids come running, and some of the sheep were lambing. They were having their babies. So I like to kind of be out there just in case. We've actually, this breed that we have, which is Shetland, I've never had a problem. Every one of them, knock on wood, have done great on their own, all the mamas, and that's what they're known for. They don't really need assistance. But I still like to be out there, and brought the mama and the babies into the little separate area and shelter that we have just for the babies when they're born, mostly because it's supposed to get cold tonight and even potentially snow. So I like to have them at least for their first few days. They like to be outside a lot, this breed, but for their first few days they really should be inside if you can do that. So that's why the video is taking so long. I should have a few pictures that I've taken and throw up here so that you can see them. They're cute little twins. One's boy, one's girl, little black and white ones. And they're doing totally healthy. They're already, I mean, they're only just, I don't know, 3-4 hours old, maybe 4 to 5 hours old. And they're already just running all over the place and making a bunch of mess and noise, which is what lambs typically do. Today, I want to talk to you more about, well, all this food stuff. And not just what we already know, that there's going to be difficulty at the minimum. So, I talk to you in minimums, what we know for absolutely certain is going to happen. And then there's always the things that's possibly going to happen. So at the very least, we here in the United States are going to experience very high food costs, very high costs of living. And so in that aspect, it's going to make it tough for us to get by. But we could really see true shortages. I mean, we're going to see true shortages because as things become more expensive, and people purchase less, it does create an economic type of shortage. But we're also talking about real, actual shortages. And that could very well happen here in the United States. And one of the things that we need to consider is not just how that's going to affect us, like food in our own belly, okay, which is extremely important. But how is that going to affect other people? How is that going to affect our communities? And really, how is that going to affect the civility of people? And so we want to talk about that also today, and have obviously some news about these different subjects to bring to you. Before I get started though, once again, you're going to be hearing this a lot, so please don't get too, tired of hearing this. Our Prepared Homesteading Expo is the end of May, 26th and 27th. You can go to preparedhomesteadexpo.com and learn more about it. It's like an everyday thing just about of working on it. Have lined up 2 or 3 great speakers. They're on there on the website, some of them that I've gone ahead and started putting the information on there so that you can get a sneak peek of the people that will be speaking there. And some of the vendors, great vendors. I mean, I've got people that local folks that raise, all natural beef that you can come and purchase from them. People that make things, clothing items, jewelry, candles, medicinal stuff, all that kind of stuff. I've got, several people on t-shirt, family-owned businesses making some really cool t-shirts showing up. Let's see what else. There's some great skills demonstrators we're already lining up. Someone that's bringing a spinning wheel and talk and show about spinning wool into yarn. Someone that is going to demonstrate cooking, cast iron cooking and stuff from the 1800s and old Depression era recipes. Just some really great stuff. Also, and a lot of you, especially the ones that are wanting to move here, because I guess that's the only ones that this would pertain to, but that's a lot of you. The lady that I typically recommend, who is a realtor here in the area, she's a personal friend of ours. In fact, she's the lady we bought those sheep from that you saw pictures, the parents. She's the realtor that we recommend, and her and a loan manager, bank loan manager, is going to be there. And both of them individually are they're very in tune with homesteading and stuff here in the Ozarks. I know some of you, where you're at, you're like, man, nobody lives like that. Around here, a lot of people do. It's very common. And so they get it. The realtor, she's a prepper and a homesteader herself, and the bank manager guy, loan guy, is going to be there also talking to people. So please plan to attend this. It is a free event, but we do encourage you to sign up, which is like an RSVP, so that we know that you're going to be there, so we can plan ahead. But anyways, I'm dragging on way too long. PreparedHomesteadExpo.com. I think you're going to really enjoy this. We're pulling out everything we can, and hopefully it's going to be really exciting. There'll be at the very least several hundred people there in attendance. So be sure to attend if you're able to. So on to this food stuff. We've talked about this on here, that people get crazy when they're hungry. I mean, that's not a new thing, folks. They get crazy when they get hungry. Everybody knows that. We lose our civility. I mean, I've heard it said in different ways. Human civility, or you can put it in a different way than that. But civility, we're only like 9 meals away from civility. Or a complete collapse of our civilization, or of us, kind of losing our humanity. Meaning that you're about 3 days. You get hungry, and there's no food, and the outlook for acquiring that food looks really horrible. After about the 3rd day, it's gonna be crazy, and people are going to start turning not very nice. And so that is certainly something to consider. I mean, there's the Arab Spring. Many of you know about this, some of you don't. This happened in Egypt and in that region, and a lot of it had to do, there was definitely some political stuff that was involved in that, but a big part of it was food shortages and food prices. And people rioted, and people rebelled, and it causes governments to collapse. If you go back and you look throughout history, there are many, many, many instances that civilizations, that governments collapse during famine. They're not able, the people are hungry, and there's not enough food. And even if it's not the government's fault, the people just lose their civility, and governments fall apart. So all that being said, with the direction that we are headed as a people, not just Americans, but as a people, with prices skyrocketing, food shortages, most definitely food shortages in certain parts of the world, but very possibly food shortages here also, at least economically and possibly actually. We have to be wary of that. I want to show you this article here. My mother actually sent me this. And this actually has nothing to do with the current food shortages or food prices, okay? The story is this guy ends up shooting his father because he couldn't pay for his groceries, and his father wanted him to pay for he wanted his dad to pay for his groceries, and he refused to. They go home. I guess they went to the grocery store together, and the guy's little card didn't work, and he's like, "Dad, pay for my groceries, I need it." He was probably being a jerk, I don't know, and he wouldn't do it. When they got home, the son killed the dad. Now, I know you're going to say, yeah, this guy's just he's maybe mental, or he's just a bad news and all that. This probably has nothing to do with the current shortages and prices. That's very possibly true, and I would agree that that's most likely the case, because in reading the article, there's nothing to indicate otherwise. But the fact is that this is where people will start to head when food becomes hard to get, when food becomes extremely pricey, when food is not available in the way that they're used to, when they're not able to feed themselves in the way that they're used to, this is the direction people will eventually start to head. This isn't something new that's happened like this. This is actually very typical. People will turn to violence. Have you noticed in the last few years how violent we have become as a society? In the last 2 years, each year, the crime rates just are skyrocketing. I mean, they've gone up sometimes triple digits in some places, and even more, 200 and 300% in some areas. There's a pattern here, folks, and that's a pattern of our civilization is crumbling. And so as that happens, and as there's already a weakening of our society, of our culture, and then you throw on top of that food shortages and prices that are just ridiculous. If the average family, the average household is having to pay, over $5,000 a year just to live, and people can't afford that, they will go to desperate measures. And it's already happening. In Peru, if you haven't heard, Peru is experiencing, as we speak, food riots. They're experiencing riots in the streets because of high food prices. And it's not so much exactly shortage. They still have food available. It's predominantly because of the prices of food and the prices of fertilizer. The farmers, they can't afford it, and the people can't afford food. That their inflation rate is very comparable to ours here in the United States, and they're already to that point of rioting because they can't afford. They can't afford food. The farmers can't afford to plant. If people can't afford food, they don't buy it. And then businesses that sell food also can't afford it because they're not making any money. And it's just a snowball effect. This is very, very likely going to happen. It's at least in certain areas. We are already experiencing, I mean, we can all probably think of certain parts of this country that most likely would experience violent actions like this just because of food. So that is another layer of things that we have to prepare for. And it's the news is becoming much more open about talking about this. You're finding more and more stuff in the news. And as that happens, whether regardless of what news channel it is, both left and right, they're talking about it more. It's going to instill more and more fear into people. And I'm telling you, all the stuff we've all experienced in the last couple of years it's not gonna compare at all to when people start to panic because they're truly afraid of starvation. That's a whole different thing, and it's going to be way more traumatic and dramatic and dangerous than anything we've experienced in the last few years. It's China. They're already going through shortages, at least they claim. I mean, you can't believe anything out of China, but you can't believe anything out of our own media either. So to me, they're about the same. But this whole Shanghai thing, I mean, they have locked that city down. There were videos a couple of weeks ago of when they announced that they were going to lock down. People were rushing to the stores and just beating the snot out of each other, trying to get the last bit of food. I mean, it was like Black Friday here in the United States, in the hood or something. It was awful. And the Chinese people typically aren't like that. They're very calm people. They're not, it's not like some areas here in the United States where it's just common to see a lot of violence like that. That's not common there. And people were doing that, and they're experiencing real food shortages, so they say. I'm sure it's orchestrated. But the people in the streets and in their homes, they feel it regardless of whether it's natural or controlled. And the same will be for you. You will feel it too, regardless of whether it's a real shortage or the government is causing it to happen. It's so bad that I found this article here, and it's how to feed your cat and take care of your cat during this food shortage crisis thing so that your cat doesn't eat you. That's right. Now, of course, there's a little tongue-in-cheek sarcasm into this article. But we all know, have heard stories that a cat, if you starve to death, or if you, die or whatever, your cat could eat you. Or if it got hungry enough, they're not quite as tame as a dog. And so the article uses a little bit of sarcasm and says, but the message is still getting across that There's actually an animal food shortage right now. Many of you have commented on that. It's hard to get animal food, especially cat food. So this article talks about how you can feed your animal cheaply without store-bought animal food, so that your cat doesn't starve and attack you and turn on you. That's how bad it's getting, folks. That's how bad it's getting when we're talking about how to feed our animals, our pets that we love like our children, or at least some of you do, maybe even more, so that they don't turn and attack and eat us. Is that where we're at now? The point is, folks, is that this is way more serious than I think a lot of people know. When I was talking to my mother this morning, she was talking to a friend and trying to wake them up about this. She was telling me, and the friend just kind of laughed it off and basically said, you know, America is not going to fall because of this. America, our food is too secure. We're too good. We make too much food. We're okay. And the thing is we're not really that okay. Are we going to experience the same level of problems as Egypt? Maybe not. But if things change, if things worsen, if more wars start, that's a possibility. If things stay the way they are, it's going to be bad on its own. But if things start changing down the road, it could get much, much worse. And we're already seeing and hearing that we're going to be sending lots of food. You know, our government and the Western world, mostly us in Canada is pretty much it, has pledged to encourage the farmers to produce more food so that we can send it around the world. Not to produce more food so that we can ensure that we have enough here to eat and that it doesn't cause any problems here. No, we're going to send it around the world. And the problem is we're having a harder and harder time each year of producing more and more food. Canada's having a real hard time dealing with droughts. And you know what? We are too. We've talked about that on here. We're experiencing the worst drought in 1,200 years, and they're expecting this year to be even worse than last year or the year before. On top of that, there is a fertilizer shortage. You all know about that. We talk about it almost every day. And what is available is just absolutely ridiculously priced. And there's other shortages. There's fuel and all kinds of things. And so this idea that America's just going to start producing enough food for the entire world is really, it's just not going to happen. It's naive to say the very least, but it's certainly not going to happen. And I have a feeling that our leadership in Washington has no problem with making sure the rest of the world is fed, even if we Americans suffer from it. In fact, they've actually said pretty much that same thing, that we need to get ready for hurt and pain because we have to take care of everyone else. So folks, this isn't something that's going to go away. And the possibility, we know it's going to get worse. So I don't think that we even have to say if it's going to get worse. But the possibility of it getting a lot worse, getting really bad, I think becomes more and more real every day. And so we have to continue to get ready. Coming to this expo that we're planning, that's a really good way to help. If you're able to do it, you can meet others, you can learn. So do everything you can, and especially stocking up and then learning how to produce your own food, because you don't want to be one of those people that gets shot by your kid because you wouldn't pay for his grocery bill. No, I really shouldn't say that. But the point is, you don't want to end up in the same place and then think back, I had a chance to get ready and I didn't. Folks, get your houses in order. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.